Welcome back. It is always a good day. When I wake up, I give thanks. And I know today is a day that I am fortunate to introduce you to another fascinating human being. This one happens to be one of my very favorite men on the planet. Um, I'll get to his introduction in just a moment. First, just a little bit of housekeeping. Thank you for the downloads. Oh my gosh, the show just grows every single week. So my top cities are in no particular order. I just pulled it off of the back end. Chicago, Minneapolis, Sydney, Australia, Houston, San Diego, woo woo, hometown, Los Angeles, Detroit, Baltimore, and New York. So thank you to all those places, even in between. It's just really fun to see that the show is resonating and that death indeed is dinner conversation and nothing to fear. We're all going to end up there one day or another, and we just need to strip it down and get real and talk about it. So I am appreciative. The Facebook page is growing in leaps and bounds. The Instagram seems to be picking up steam. The YouTube channel, brand new, but it is getting viewers all the time. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm not sure why people like to watch conversations, but they do. People like to watch. So thank you for being here. Okay, my guest today is my friend Steve Burrows. Steve is a remarkably talented artist in a day and age when a lot of art it's that AI generated crap. And this is a man who does everything literally by hand. I mean, he is doing everything. And it's absolutely mind blowing. So I will post his link to his website. You can check him out, but it's really easy to find. It's burritoart.com. Um, I met Steve years ago because I have a dear friend named Rose. I call her Sweet Rose. Rose and I worked together in radio, and she fell in love with this wonderful man, and his name is Steve. So Rose brought me to Steve, and Steve is an artist, and of course, I am a creative. And so Steve actually worked for me in 2006 when I did my first children's book. I call it my first because I've got about five more I want to do. For you YouTube fans, look at this. Isn't that amazing? It's called With a Cherry on Top. Then, flash forward years later, I get into my death and dying world, and I needed some graphics for the next room. And I'm like, huh. So I reached out, and sure enough, he did the coolest things for the next room, which you can find. I've got some of them earmarked because they're my favorite little. I've got this little guy that he drew for me, and he did it all by hand. Anyway, fabulous artist. Go check him out, and you're really going to fall in love with him after you hear him speak today. So, without further ado, my dear friend Steve Burrows, welcome to the next room.
Hey Jane, how's it going? Thanks for that introduction. That's quite a lot to live up to. That guy
Yeah,
sounds pretty cool. I wish it was me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He is you. Um,
Oh, okay, good.
Something very interesting about you, which I love. We were setting up to time to record, and I was like, hey, you want to, 9, 10 in the morning, whatever. And you're like, yeah, can we do it a little later? I want to get a surf in. So if that gives you any indication about this man, you check the waves every single day, and you have to say hello to the ocean. I think to keep your balance, right? Talk to me about your passion for surfing and for the outdoors.
Yeah, anybody that spends a lot of time around the water, you get nervous or twitchy if you're away from it for too long. Your gills start to dry up. So yeah, if I'm not in it, I at least have to lay my eyes on it and let it know that it's still there, and it'll be available when I have time to get there or when the conditions are right. And it just kind of, it resets your etch a sketch. Like something's bugging you, or you had a rough day, or you just need to unwind. You jump in the water, and it just kind of just resets everything, and anything that might have been bugging you all of a sudden becomes trivial. And yeah, I've had all kinds of amazing experiences out there, and not necessarily just recreational, but like spiritual, like kind of wow, I didn't know that was going to happen type of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the ocean is everything to me.
Water is life, and the positive
True
ions,
that.
there's just something about it. I love the quote, resets your etch a sketch. I just totally got that visual. And now I'm seeing you drawing one of those. I know you're going to do it now. I know that's going to pop up in your art. Um, let's go there first because you are first and foremost one of the most creative people I've known. As a matter of fact, the beautiful mural behind you, you actually did. You
Yeah.
paint, you work with your hands all the time. Approximately how old were you when you felt that call to really get busy with your art?
Uh, kindergarten. Um, it was once it became they broke out the water paints. I'm like, all right, now we're talking. I can something I can dive into. And the first time I was ever acknowledged for it was in first grade. And like a lot of artists, I'm not the greatest student because I'm spacing out, looking out the window and daydreaming and thinking about, motorcycles and race cars and whatever little kids are into at that time. And the teacher came around and handed out puzzle pieces and said, trace these puzzle pieces and then turn them into something. And I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, okay, that's a dragon, that's a giraffe, that's a turtle, that's a zebra, and that's a motorcycle. And I, put my pencil down, and the teacher said, "Hey, Steve, you even going to try?" And I go, "Oh, sorry, I'm done." I maybe I misunderstood the instructions, which I did a lot in school. And so she like kind of stomped over to me, and she's like, "Oh," she like pulls up my paper and she looks at it, and she's like, "Oh wow," like, and I'm like, "Oh wow, what?" Like, "Oh wow, go the principal, I'm in trouble again." And she's like, "No," like, and she grabbed my paper and took it up and pinned it up on the chalkboard and said, "Everybody look at this. This is an example of what you're supposed to do." And I still thought I was like in trouble. Like, I'm like, she's setting me up for the big switcheroo. And now you have to go see the principal again. But no, so that was the first time I knew I saw things differently, I guess, for lack of a better description. Like I saw things in cartoon or in drawings rather than, flat.
Yeah. How were your parents? Did they encourage you in your creative endeavors, or was it kind of like, this isn't gonna be a great way to make a living kind of thing? Because it's a tough road, Here you are, this creative being, right? And you're expressive through different means than the old I O off to work I go crew.
Yeah, it was half and half. My mom was a really good artist. My father was in construction, and he was like, you got to get up every day and go out and swing a hammer and earn some money. And they weren't really into giving us anything. Like if you wanted something, you had to go out and work for it. And so, um, since I was old enough to pick up nails and a hammer, I was doing construction. But my passion was art. And my dad was like, that's great. And you're definitely talented, but you can't make any money doing that. That's not a career. That's not a job. So I kind of got tugged in both directions with that most of my young life. My dad was very supportive and would always talk me up and say, look at what this kid can do and this and that. But it was also like, you need to earn a living. So it was a dance there for a while, because he wasn't artistic. He was a builder, which is everything needs four walls and a roof. And I'm like, or does it? Maybe it doesn't need that. I'm a think outside the box type of person. So we were best of friends. My father has since passed away. We were great friends, but we agreed to see things differently because his father was also a carpenter, but he was very artistic. So it's mostly his fault because it came from his side of the family.
Bob the Builder. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that in your family home, you made a beautiful sign that hangs over the fireplace that says the house that Bob built.
Yeah.
Very, very touching. Okay, so we see each other occasionally, but I had not seen you in a while. And your beautiful mother crossed over to the next room. Her name's Artie, and it was very sad because I think the last time I saw your mom, she was just kicking ass and taking names. She was just so vibrant and so sharp and so
Mhm.
funny and so full of life. So it kind of caught me by surprise that she went so quickly. And I know she had some illnesses and stuff. So I am fortunate enough to be able to, feel comfortable to attend her beautiful service. So Tom and I came up to Artie's funeral, which was just beautiful. I mean, it was the full Catholic Mass, but it was so touching because it was obvious that the priest really, really knew your mom. And then to hear about the life that she led. And then I
Mhm.
thought, well, there's the adventure part of Steve, because this woman, there wasn't anything she didn't do. I mean, she was jumping off of cliffs and doing hang gliding. For goodness sakes, wasn't that on her like 70th birthday?
Yeah, yeah. We took her up to Torrey Pines. I was told I took my wife Rose off of Torrey Pines on a paraglider, and told my mom all about it. And she goes, "I think I'd like to do that." I'm like, "Seriously?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "All right, your birthday's around the corner." So took her up there, strapped her onto a pilot, and she was kind of like, "Did I really say I want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you're already in. Like, the check cleared. It's time to go." And she just ran off Torrey Pines and flew around and came back. And she's like, "Yeah, what else you got?"
That's wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, she's a
she,
go getter.
yeah, very much a go-getter. So one of the really beautiful things, aside from the service, which I thought was amazing, was you built, I guess you would best describe it as it was like looking through the windows into Artie's life. You took old window frames and then you put beautiful pictures of her life behind them. Tell me about that idea because I know my audience is really going to resonate with it. And I want to use some of the photos that you sent me of those so I can describe it better because you have to see it to get
Mhm.
that concept. I have never seen anything like that before. Talk to me about that.
Well, much to my wife's chagrin, I am a crap collector. I see stuff and I'm like, oh, that's going to be a project. Like that, I don't know what it's going to be right now, but down the road, that is going to circle back around, and it's going to be the perfect thing that I need for the perfect thing that I don't know what it is yet. And unfortunately, I have a lot of that kind of laying around. Um, so I had these old distressed wooden windows that people take out and modernize their house, but they look cool. And so I just kind of piled them up and saved them for, something. I wasn't sure what. And so then when my mom passed away, um, I go, oh, I'll draw up something for her memorial. Well, as a lot of like, you know, even though you may be ready for someone to pass away or not, it kind of kicks you in the gut. And I could not draw anything. I was just like, it happened with my father too. It just took my creativity away as far as like being able to draw something. And it happens for about a week or two until I, you know, get back up on the horse. So I couldn't draw anything. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't be creative. But my mom grew up in Tonopah, Nevada. Probably most of you haven't heard of that. That's because it's a population of about 7 people. And literally, so she grew up in the 30s and 40s in Tonopah. And literally for fun, they would go out at night and they would watch the mountains light up because they were testing nuclear bombs on the other side of in Nevada. So that was a good time in Tonopah. So and they lived in a adobe, house, for lack of a better term. I saw an old picture of her sitting on her stoop one time, and I said, "Is that an outhouse?" She goes, "No, that's where I live." I'm like, "My God." And so I'll tell my friends these stories, and I think a lot of them think I make it up because I'm creative and I can spin a yarn. And so we had these old black and white photographs of my mom and how she grew up, and it's just real grapes of wrath, like Dust Bowl type of existence. Like, she was an only child. um, her father was a gypsum miner, and kind of just went from town to town looking for work. uh, Her mom cleaned houses and apartments, and hotels and stuff. So not the glamorous of lives, but my mom was super happy. She just, rode a horse to school and just really cool stuff. So I had all these old photographs that kind of depicted that uh, life growing up. And they went, and I just took them, got them blown up to like 2 foot by 3 foot, said, leave all the wrinkles and, like, coffee stains on them. And I stuck them behind these old wooden window frames that I've been keeping for some reason. And I was really hoping it was going to look cool because I didn't have a plan B, but I kind of wanted to show them around, put them up and hang them around the outside of her house for her celebration of life. And it was kind of a floating storyboard of her growing up, and it went into her, marriage, and they were all black and white and sepia tone. It came out pretty cool, and I did it as kind of a therapy to kind of, you know, an homage to her and her life, and it was also a visual thing for other people to experience, and uh, you know, people really reacted well to him. And people looked at him differently. And you were the one that came up and said, "Oh wow, these are a window into her life." And I'm like, "That's, I wish I'd come up with that." But yeah, that's what they turned out to be. And so yeah, that's kind of how, collecting some junk over the last years and not really knowing what they were going to be used for ended up being an homage to one of the most beautiful people in the world.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just kind of rushing right now thinking about all of those pictures because, and I'll post them on the Facebook page so that when the show airs, people can go and actually see because I think you're going to start a little Windows movement here. I really do. And isn't that a cool thing too? This art, this feeling that you see something and you don't know what it's going to be, but you just know you need to have it. One
Mhm.
man's junk, right, is another man's
Right.
treasure. And it just so happens that, you
To
also
quote
have that.
Fred Sanford.
Yeah, exactly. You also have that building gene. I mean, you helped your dad build your childhood home as well. So you have the builder in you as well. Um, and I do want to say something else about your mom. It was interesting because here you are right in front of me. I could have interviewed you 4 years ago. Never really thought about it. And then, you went through a series of losses and your mom, I go to your mother's beautiful service and I bring back her prayer card, which I have. I've got Artie in the studio with me. I tack her up so I can see her pretty face. And it's my favorite prayer. It's a St. Francis prayer on the back of her prayer card. Um, so I get home and I'm thinking to myself, just kind of thoughts come to me. And I feel like I get these downloads from beyond, which I do. Um, and all of a sudden, I could hear your mom's voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, Artie, that's a great idea. And so I literally, it was just so bizarre. And so I texted you and I was like, kind of like, oh, I don't know. He's probably gonna think I'm nuts. He's not gonna want to come on the show. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to tell me right now, but might you consider coming on the next room? And you just said one word, yes, in caps. And I was so pumped because I feel it was totally your mother coming through, however that happens. I mean, some of us hear things, which is kind of my thing. Some of us see things. Some of us have vivid dreams. some of us feel. So let's go there for a moment because I know you're super vibey and I know that you've had some really cool, for lack of a better term, afterlife experiences with
Mhm.
those that have gone before you.
Yeah, my father passed away 29 years ago, and it was sudden. He just had a heart attack laying on the couch in the middle of the night, right before Christmas. And with something like that, it's such a jolt. You're not expecting it, and you're left with a lot of questions. And my, like I said, my father was a builder, and he was doing a lot of importing for some high-end homes. If you're from the San Diego area, it's a Rancho Santa Fe. A lot of big houses there, and he was in the middle of a really big house, supplying it with all these columns and fountains and tiles and big end stuff. And he passed away in the middle of it. And so um, when we're trying to sort out, the sudden loss of your father, there were also questions of what are we going to do with the company? And we have to get this job done and this and this and this. And at that point, I was just a dumb shit surfer with like, as little responsibility as I could get away with. And all of a sudden it's like, Steve, what are we going to do? And I'm like, uh, about what? And they're like, about all this stuff. Like, like you're the man of the family now. And I'm like, uh, no, I'm still a kid. I was in my 30s. And, but so they're like, no, like you have to grow up now. And so I had to. And, uh, and so it's like, okay, what are we going to do with the business? How are we going to take care of this, get this job done? And I was somehow doing it. I had all these balls in the air, but it was messing with me. And like you said, people get visited in dreams. I had this super vivid dream, and I was following my father um, across like a big open foyer. And I was like, Dad, what am I going to do? Like, mom's asking me for answers, and my sisters are asking me for answers, and all these clients want answers. I go, I don't know what to do. I'm just an idiot, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell everybody. And he was just kind of walking. He was looking at a set of plans. He was kind of nodding his head. He's like, yeah. And I go, Dad, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. Like I'm at a loss. And he just kind of looked up and he goes, don't worry about it, son. None of this matters. And I'm like, and I snapped open and I was just sobbing. And I'm like, wow. I go, he would know, like, in the broad scheme of things, all this, material stuff doesn't matter because, he's on the other side and he gets it now. And so that was my first vivid dream kind of visit with Pops. And then I had another one maybe a month or two later. And same type of thing. People that have had these kind of dreams know there's like dreams and you don't really remember. And then there's dreams. It's like, it's, technicolor, you know, you don't forget a moment of it. It's super vivid and it's usually super emotional. And so I had another dream like that. My dad was um, up on a hill and we were kind of sitting up on a hill above these clouds. And he was telling me about this story that he and I had experienced down camping in Mexico. And him and a friend got into a bottle of tequila and they were doing donuts out on a dry lake bed. And there was mud going everywhere. And they couldn't figure out if they were looking out the front window or the back window. And they were laughing hysterically. And my dad was laughing hysterically, telling me the story. And I remember him like laughing so hard that he was crying. And he wiped a tear from his face, just laughing. I'm like, wow. And I go, and it always feels like you should just accept that kind of visitation for what it is and not try to like, you know, cheat and look behind the curtain because, and then I go, what's it like up here? And I just snapped out of it, like immediately woke up
Wow.
sobbing again. And I'm like, oh, I should have just shut up and listened. Like, why
Wow.
did I have to pry? Yeah. And
Interesting.
then one more visit that I got. Like I said, my father was a contractor, and he had all these older carpenters that worked for him. They were all from World War II era, Korean War era. Really salty, super cool, amazing story old guys, and they were the guys that I worked under, and they've all passed. And so I'm walking on this job site, and the house is all framed up. And with a framed house, you can walk in between the walls because there's no drywall or anything through there. So I walk on this job site, and here's all these carpenters that I grew up with that have all passed. And they're like, "Hey, kid, hey, Steve, what's going on?" I'm like, "Wow, there's Bill, there's Harold, wow, wow." And I'm kind of like looking around. I go, "Is he here?" And they go, "Yeah, he's over there." And they pointed to my dad, and he had his back to me. He had his overalls on. He was working in a room. It's always hard to get through. But so I walked up to him, and I tapped him, and I go, "Dad." And he like turned around, gave me a big hug, and I could smell his sweat and his
Mm.
cigarettes, and I'm like, I go, "I miss you so much." And I go, "What have you been doing?" He goes, "I'm building all this for you guys." So I'm like, wow, woke up sobbing again. So I'm like, all right. And so it was, I felt it was my job. Every time I would get these visits, I would call up my sisters or my mom and convey, like, "Hey, I got a visit from dad. He said this and this and this. There it is." And so my mom would get a little upset. She's like, "How come he's not visiting me?" I go, "I don't know, Mom. I didn't ask for it. I just feel like I'm the
Right.
messenger."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
Oof.
and then I got a physical one. Am I rambling too much, or just
No,
keep going?
no, no. Are you kidding?
So,
I'm just taking so many notes right now
yeah.
because no, I love
So,
this. I
uh,
let me just say thank you for your transparency and your willingness to open up and share your heart like this because
oh,
these
sure.
these are important topics and
Yeah.
people need to know they're not going nutty, right? That this
Yeah.
is absolutely 100% a-okay. As Bob says, none of this matters, right?
Yeah.
None of this matters. Okay, so
Yeah.
proceed.
Uh, so then I paddleboard a lot. I'm out, like I said, I'm out on the ocean. So it was a big or a flat, beautiful day. And so I was just going for a long distance stand up paddleboard down the ocean. And I see dolphins all the time, almost daily. And they're super cool to see. And sometimes they're really friendly, sometimes they're bashful and they don't really want to deal with you. And you just kind of get what you get. And so that's how it is. And so I saw this dolphin off in the distance, and I go, "Oh, I'm going to try to catch up with him and race." And so race to catch up with it. And so it goes underwater, and I don't see it. And I go, "Okay, it's one of those dolphins that doesn't want to be messed with. Fine." So I just keep paddling, and all of a sudden, my eyes well up, and I just start crying, and I'm like, for no reason. Like I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just, enjoying the sunshine. And I'm like, what is going on? And all of a sudden, this dolphin pulled up next to me and like right next to the nose of my board and just slowly came up and kind of turned and looked at me. And I just went, "Hi, Dad." And it's like, kind of looked, went back down, went on the other side of my board, came up, looked at me again. And dolphins always kind of have that natural smile. And I go, "Mom and the girls are doing great. Thanks for checking in." Slowly went down, swam off, and I'm like, well, that just happened. So
Dude,
another
wow.
story to share with the girls.
That's making me cry. I mean, dolphins are just so spiritual and so beautiful. And so I love the word bashful that you used because sometimes they are playful and then other times they're like, yeah, I got my own groove going on.
Yeah.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never write or, I don't send emails. I don't write letters. I'm an artist. I came home and I grabbed my wife, Rose. I go, "Rose, you got to write this down. Like I need to share this with people." And so she composed like a little email to me or for me as I kind of dictated what happened. And I kind of wrapped it up with, and after the dolphin drifted away, I said, I go, well, that's the way it goes sometimes. Dad shows up from time to time. Sometimes it's, in the smell of sawdust, or a warm breeze on a cool day. Today, he showed up in the smile of a dolphin. And
Wow.
so I shared that with other people that have lost loved ones, and it helps them and helps me.
You have to send that to me, please. Or have Rose, because I know you don't email. Have Rose email me that because I will incorporate that into my show notes. Yeah. Wow. It's just so cool too, because love never dies. Um, and I believe, everybody has the right to think what they think, but I have been shown, and I have it on quite good authority, and it sounds like you do as well, that we just continue on, just in a different realm, right? Just beyond
Yeah,
that veil. Um, oh man, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
yeah,
I wonder, do you wonder, what about your sister? Now, I know you had you're down a team member. It's tough when you
yeah,
lose your parents, very hard. And you're officially now in that club that no one wants to be in where you become an orphan. Doesn't matter how old you are, when you
yeah,
lose that last parent, it's weird. You're kind of untethered for a while and
right.
you feel like, wow, nobody's checking in on me anymore. You know what I mean? It's so bizarre. But then when you lose a sibling, it's like next level bizarre because I've lost one. We're down a team member. My sister Lynn is
Yeah.
is in the next room, and I know your sister Kim is. Can you talk to me about that, or is that too difficult?
No, not at all. I actually got a visit from Kim as well. Kim passed away from cirrhosis of the liver, and uh, she had a she had some demons that she kind of kept hid, and it's that's something that's tragic to deal with too, because you wish I come from a family of 5 kids. You wish that she would have reached out or asked for help, and so you're kind of left with that. Why didn't they trust me, or why, you know, maybe I should have seen the signs or done something different. But in the end, there's nothing you could do. But so we all stayed with her while she passed. She was probably, terminal for several weeks. So we just stayed with her and kept her comfortable and laughed and, did what you do when someone's passing over. Um, then I had a dream that I was, at this point, my mother was still alive. Um, I had one of those powerful dreams that, what was going on? I was laying in my mom's bed for some reason, and by myself, and my sister that had passed away came in and kind of like nuzzled up to me and like gave me a hug around my shoulders. And I turn around and I go, Kim. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I'm good. I'm good now. And I go, holy crap. And I look over and my mom had opened up the bedroom door and kind of like stuck her head in and like pulled back. I go, no, no, mom, come here. It's Kim. She's good. And she goes, oh no. She's like, Kim. And so, hugs all the way around. She's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I go, everybody's here, all the girls and Kim's 2 siblings or children were there. And so we walked into the kitchen, and I go, you guys, it's Kim, it's Kim. And she's like, everybody's like, oh my gosh. She goes, yeah, I'm good now. I'm good. And she gave everybody a hug and walked around the room. And her son is a rebellious little guy, and and doesn't really believe in God or spirituality. And he's very scientific. And I noticed that she pulled him off to the side and had like a quiet, private conversation with him. And he was just nodding his head, like, okay, okay. And so she was in my dream setting him straight that she was, you know, crossed over and she was in a better place. Um, And then that was it. Woke up crying. I'm like, well, that was a good check-in.
Wow. Oof.
Yeah.
That's just wild. And then are you able to articulate that to each one of your other, you have three other sisters. You're the big brother. You've got all these baby sisters. Um, and then my question is, how about the son now? Like, has he woken up to any of the possibilities that there is something on the other side?
Um, I don't know. Well, I'll put it this way. At my mother's funeral, he walked down the aisle and presented the host to the priest for communion. I don't think he ever would have done that before,
Okay.
because he's very atheist. And the fact that he basically volunteered to do that was a big step. So I think he is, opening up his mind to, you know, the other side, or a spiritual realm rather than just what you can touch.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's hard. I think it's hard with those that perhaps, and I respect it because I get it. There's a lot of people that are just super scientific and they think done, game over, fade to black. And I always think, you know, um, hmm, first of all, God doesn't believe in atheists. Um, but also too, it just seems a little bit egotistical to think that we are all that cool, that this is it,
Yeah.
right? That this is the creation and then it's game over. I don't know. I would hope, and I always think, I always tease a friend of mine who's an atheist as well. And I had him on the show so he could talk to me about his beliefs or lack thereof. And at the very end of the show, I just said, when the time comes and the two of us are moving on, I said, I'm going to find you and say, told you so. And he laughed. He thought that was great. So none of us really know, do we? All we know is what we think we know. So you have to be respectful of other people's wishes. But I think too, he probably wouldn't have agreed to do that being a button down atheist years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe Kim's whispers to him were right on. Do
Oh, I have a.
any of, oh, go ahead.
Oh, you were saying you're going to chase someone, not chase someone down, but you're going to find them and
Yeah.
say, "I told you so." Well,
Yeah.
that reminded me that happened to my uncle, who's very religious, and my father's little brother. And uh, my dad wasn't not religious, but he wasn't very religious.
Wasn't like your mom.
Right. He took us to church, but anyway. Uh, After I had those powerful dreams, I go, oh, am I the only one? And I thought my uncle Dan, who's very religious and that's told me about some spiritual things that have happened to him. I go, I wonder if he's getting any of this communication. So I ran into him at a Thanksgiving or family get together, and I said, "Hey, has Dad visited you?" And he goes, "What do you mean by that?" And I go, "I keep getting these dreams, and they're like visits, like they're, hey, I've got something to say, pass it on." And he goes, "That's really interesting you say that." He goes, "Because nobody's asked me, and I haven't told anybody." But he goes, um, "The night your dad passed away," he goes, "I was sleeping in my bed, and in my dream, I woke up and your father was standing at the foot of my bed and said, 'I get it now, Danny.'" And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "I get it now." And Danny woke up to a phone call that his brother passed away.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Just amazing. Yeah. God, this is good. I'm just so happy that you texted back yes, that you were willing to come on. What do you think is next? I mean, what do you do you think your mom will come in and do a little visit? Or do you ask for
I
her to come visit?
Um, she may have. I haven't had a dream yet, but a couple days after my mom passed, maybe 4 or 5 days, um, my wife and I were sitting out in our backyard, and it was a sunny day, and I had like this kind of floppy, basically straw lifeguard hat type thing on, and Rose was had made us breakfast, and we were just sitting out in the garden, and she goes, "Oh," she goes, "There's a butterfly. It just landed on top of your head." And I go, "Oh, that's cool." And and it just landed right in the little, valley on the top of your hat, and was sitting there just kind of drying its wings. And she goes, "Oh, let me get my phone." And she went to hold up the phone, and it flew off. And I go, "Oh, that's trippy." And so we kept talking, and then she put her phone down, and then the butterfly circled back around, land on top of my head again. And she goes, "It's back again." I go, "Oh, that's cool." And so then, she slowly grabs her phone, and she like took a video of it. She's like, "Don't move, don't move." And and so I sat there, and she videotaped it, and it stayed there for 2, 3 minutes. And then I kind of turned my head, and it flew off. And I go, "Wow, that's really cool." And I go, "Let me see the video." And so I go, "Oh, I'll put my hat back so the butterfly can, sun itself again." And so I go over and I look at the video, and the butterfly came back to the hat, circled around it, and took off and didn't land on it. I go, "Oh, all right." And then we start going, "I wonder if it's mom," and almost jokingly. And like, "Oh, it could be." And I looked at the video. I go, "Oh, it's really cool." I went back down. I sat down. I picked up my hat, stuck it back on my head. Woof, butterfly comes over and lands back on my head again. And now instead of calling it the butterfly, we're calling she. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
wow. And we're like, "Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure, mom." And so I kind of shared that with my friends and family. I go, "I may have got a visit from mom. Take it for what it's worth, but it's a cool story no matter what." And so I shared that with my aunts and uncles. So at her celebration of life, everybody was giving me cards with butterflies, and my aunt bought us all wind chimes with butterflies. So um, even though I wasn't 100% sure that was a visit for mom, a lot of people were. So it was sort of an underlining butterfly theme to her celebration of life. And it's very appropriate because, butterflies transition. So,
Exactly. You know what's funny is that I did not know about the butterfly landing on your hat, and I sent you a card that
yeah.
was a butterfly card before. And then Rose sent me that video, and she was like, "Your card was great to Steve. Check this out." So I did the card before the butterfly. So,
Yeah.
I just think that there's a divine energy presence in life. Call it what you will. Many use the word
Mhm.
God because it's super comfortable. The Holy Spirit, the divine beloved, you know, Jesus is a good dude. Whatever
Mhm.
it is, there is an energy on the planet and elsewhere, and it is so much bigger than anybody can even conceptualize. So why not? Why not believe in these wonderful things? And it just gives you so much hope. And without hope, we're nothing, man. We're
Yeah.
just these empty shells without believing in the wonderful divine thing that this is, which to me, it is all love. It is all love.
Yeah.
Ah, this is good, Steve. This is good stuff. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the show. Is there anything I didn't touch on? And then I want to go back to your art because I want people to know where they can find you, because they can commission you for artwork, obviously, anywhere in San Diego County. You'll come in, you'll paint whole walls for people if they want, but you also do illustrations. You do a lot of like adventure ocean art. VW bugs seem to be, or the old vans and stuff. And when I'm telling you this person does everything by hand, I mean it. You can actually see him. I don't know how your hands do it. You always, how do you keep your hands healthy?
I don't. If you saw my hands, it would look like I was somewhere between a prize fighter and a brick mason. Um, but yeah, in spite of my efforts, I still get pretty good stuff to come out the end of them. So I really appreciate that, Jane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I gotta share my mom's basically mic drop moment the night before she passed away.
Please do.
And then, I don't know if I shared this story with you, but she was in the hospital and she was getting weaker and weaker and rapidly declining. And the night before she passed away, I was spending the night with her. Me and my sisters would trade off doing shift staying with her. And the nurses came in at like 11 o'clock at night or something. They're like, hey, really sorry, Artie. We need to inventory all your stuff just in case we have to move rooms. We don't want to leave anything behind. So they're like, is that your cell phone? Is that your charger? Are those your shoes? And like, yeah, yeah. And they're writing it out on the list for a bag and stuff. And she was annoyed that, she was being, you know, poked and prodded and asked questions at 11 o'clock at night, it seemed. And so then they go, okay, Artie, are these your glasses or do you wear glasses? And she's like, no. And they go, okay, do you wear dentures? She's like, no. And they go, okay, do you have a hearing aid? And she goes, what? And he goes, do you have a hearing aid? And she goes, huh? And I'm onto it. And they go, Artie, do you have a hearing? I go, you guys, she's screwing with you. And they're like, oh my God. They're like, okay, sense of humor, check. And I look at her and she's all snickering. I go, you just couldn't help yourself, could you? So, yeah.
Man, that is so great. You have to share one last story. It might make you emotional, but while you were all with her, in One Sister on the Phone, she was able to do what in her last moments?
She went around and told us all that she loved us
Mm.
into each of our ears. She said, I love you. I love you. And she said it was a heck of a run.
Ah, what a beautiful life.
Yeah,
Wow.
I hope we can all have it together that good when we get the call to be able to just glimpse back and go, yep, heck of a run. Mic drop. Peace out.
That's it. Mic drop. Ardith Dorlinda Burrows. What a beautiful woman. And it was just such a pleasure to know her. And she just treated everyone with such love and respect. Um, thank you for coming on the show. I
Thank you,
am,
Jane. I really appreciate it.
well, it was
Thanks for
just,
talking and letting me get it out.
oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? This is just such a great show. I mean, we really got to touch on a lot of fun things. Um, My guest today, Steve Burrows. He is an amazing artist. You won't have to go search for him because the link will be down below on the show page. Um, if you want to come on the show or you know someone that would like to come on the show, you can reach out through my website if you would like. It's janeasherrainey.com. I will talk to anybody about anything because to me, death is dinner conversation. It's time to, put away the fear and get back into a loving space of hope. Because I think if we face what it is, that it is a destination, each of us are going to keep this date with death at some point, hopefully for many of us, a long, long time from now. Um, but it allows us to live in a more deeply rich fashion when you know, like every day, like right on, I'm alive. What am I going to do? For Steve, he's going to go catch a wave and smile at a dolphin, talk to his dad, talk to his sister and his mom. Butterflies are going to land on his head. It's just beautiful. Thanks again, Steve Burrows, for coming on the
Thanks,
next.
Janie Rainey.
All righty. And you know what I'm going to say at the end of every show? If you can be anything on the planet at all, we have a choice, right? I want you to wake up in the morning and think to myself, I'm going to be kind. Thanks for tuning in.